It's funny, like you'll see sometimes on social media or in certain circles, like almost this like gotcha moment, like, oh, this church invested this much in a camera, and it's like, oh, gotcha. You shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
For us, it's like, no, man, we're so hyper clear on how the gathering helps to reach more people.
Yeah.
And it helps to grow the church and people get baptized. And that's the starting point for people getting in groups and using their time, talent, treasure and going on mission. It's like, no, there's no gotcha moment. Like, we got no problem investing in buildings and investing in chairs and investing in cameras. And
yeah, I mean, I could give tons of examples of ways that we've done that. You talked about cameras. We've made so many hires when it comes to the gathering ministries, and I feel totally fine. I mean, there's not any sort of check in my spirit because we believe so passionately that the more people we have gathered, the more people we can send. And if you can get that clear in your mind, man, diverting those resources in that direction, I mean, it's almost not even a conversation. You know what I mean? It's like, this is the thing. Like, this is how we get more people to the nations. This is how more people get saved, baptized, discipled, grown in generosity, sent to the nations.
This is Breaking Barriers, where we help pastors and churches grow so that they can go.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Breaking Barriers podcast. My name is Pastor Bobby. I'm here with Pastor Randy. Episode 2, talking about really part 1, part 2, talking about Flywheel and just what that concept is and how we use it as a church and as a staff and with our people, and really how helpful it's been to us. It's really a simple concept, but it's been very helpful in terms of the way that we structure the church, structure our staff, teach our people what discipleship is, kind of get everybody on the same page. So I'll talk a little bit about just kind of what that is. We'll kind of rehash that a little bit. But then today, what we really want to talk about, and this is the power of the flywheel that some people miss. Some people design an awesome flywheel, whether they know that concept of flywheel or not. It's really just a really simple way to communicate what it is that we're doing and then to structure things around that. The mistake that people often make is as soon as that thing has momentum, they end up launching something else out of it that only adds to or complicates or actually ends up undermining the flywheel. And so today we really want to talk about like, hey, the power of the flywheel is to learn how to reinvest in it. So that's what we'll try to do. Can you, Randy, just define for everybody, if people didn't listen to the last episode, you need to definitely go back and listen to that, but just kind of define for everybody, like what is a flywheel, just the very concept of it.
Yeah, so flywheel is taken from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. And the idea is you have, you think about, you mentioned in the last episode, a skier or a rower, like both of those use a flywheel. We like to use the example of a merry-go-round, just this idea of something that is spinning around and it's gaining momentum with each turn. And so how do we design something in our churches, a system to where, man, we're doing the right things and those things are each building on themselves so that momentum continues to build if we could just continue to work that flywheel. So at Mercy Hill, that flywheel is gather, and by gather we mean attend and serve. It's group, so being a community group is give, man, live sufficiently, give extravagantly, generosity fuels the mission and it forms our hearts. And we mean go, man, from the neighborhoods to the nations. And so that's what we do, and we try to do it as excellently as we possibly can.
Yeah, and then the hope would be, and this is the idea of a flywheel, the hope would be once those things happen, that there's kind of momentum left over that you can then reinvest in all of it.
Right.
And, some of the biggest organizations in the world, they kind of have... they've built their business structure around the idea of a flywheel. And you could see how the way that they have reinvested only creates more and more momentum. So like in a classic flywheel example where you have this like huge heavy metal disc, right? Let's just say it weighs thousands of pounds. It's going to be almost impossible to get that thing started. And, that's why it's so hard to start a church. Like you're starting from nothing. You have zero momentum. You're just trying to go from 0 to 1. And so turning that flywheel for the first time, and you think about that huge metal device, I don't know how much one may weigh, maybe like thousands of pounds. To get that thing to go all the way around one time is just like the biggest effort in the world to go from 0 to 1. Well, and this is why flywheels are designed this way. They're so heavy, they're so hard to start, but because they're so heavy, you don't have zero momentum once you have one turn.
That's right.
The thing is so weighty, and I don't know the physics of it all, but the thing is so weighty, it carries some momentum into the next turn.
That's right.
And if that thing begins to spin fast, you almost couldn't stop it to save your life.
Right.
Because, and that's kind of the merry-go-round example.
Right.
You know, one kid starts spinning the merry-go-round. It's pretty hard to get it going, especially one of those big, heavy steel ones.
Mm-hmm.
But we've all seen, 30 kids on a merry-go-round that's spinning, and no one's even pushing anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody's just on
It's just rolling. They're hanging on
for the ride, And so you could see this in organizations that have not only designed what they do around the idea of a flywheel, but they have really, really reinvested that momentum in future momentum. And I do think Amazon is a good example, the company Amazon, because the way Amazon has done this, for them, they want to be the most customer-centric company in the world. And they do that through having more items to sell, having lower prices, and that's basically it for the most part. Mm-hmm. But what they've done, they have reinvested in their growth so that they're not doing 1,000, and they actually have launched some other things, but for the most part, what they're doing is like, hey, how can we deliver stuff cheaper, quicker? Mm-hmm. And so they've taken any profits, and that they actually were not profitable for many, many, many years. That was a big Jeff Bezos thing. He'd be willing to start a project and it wasn't profitable for 10 years because he could see the vision of it. But now it's like, man, they own the airplanes, they own all the delivery. It's like, imagine getting that stuff started. It's like, man, that 0 to 1 in that situation, man, to buy the delivery and the planes and all that. But once that thing is going, mm-hmm. Can you imagine another company trying to start and compete with them in terms of the delivery, in terms of the
not a chance
relationships with the airports? And, bigger companies have failed, but what they have done well is they've reinvested in the flywheel.
That's right.
And that's really what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
How to just not start a bunch of new stuff, but how to take the energy of the flywheel and reinvest it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about I don't know if you've seen, I don't know if it was on Letterman or Fallon or Leno but there's a clip of Bezos where they're talking about how much money his company is losing. And it's kind of ha-ha. Mm-hmm. And then you fast forward 10, 15 years and it's like, well, seems like that was the right strategy to just keep reinvesting in what they were doing as a company. So yeah, great model. Yeah,
Prime Video is an example. This stuff with their internet stuff, I don't even know what it's called. That's a good example.
Yeah.
Okay, big thing with the flywheel, and really the topic today, and really the secret of the flywheel is you have to continue to reinvest.
That's right.
You have to continue to reinvest. So however that flywheel starts, and for us it's gather, group, give, go. If we have extra energy, and what we mean by energy is like, man, more people that want to go, more people that want to give, more people that want to serve. What do we do with that energy?
Yeah.
You got to figure out how to invest it back in the gathering, because what a lot of people do as churches begin to have a little bit of success, they have a pretty simple model and they very quickly overcomplicate it.
That's right.
I don't know why, but it's easier to me a lot of times to see the example in terms of a business, because the way this would work for a business is, you have a business that's hyper focused on, man, they do one thing,
right.
Man, they're a huge car sales business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they reinvest the profits to hire more employees, to do what they do better.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they're like, man, we got a lot of these profits. Should we get into the banking industry?
Right. Yeah.
And they try to start something like that.
Start messing with the core of their business and what made it successful in the first place.
Yeah. They end up not doing very well at it. And then, man, they don't have as much profits to reinvest in what the original business was. And the whole thing just kind of, and I think churches can do this.
Yeah.
I've seen, and I'm not using this as an example for watering down your flywheel, because maybe this is actually part of your flywheel, but you've seen churches in certain areas where it's like, man, they're they're in more of an urban area, and then they start their coffee shop. You know, the church starts a coffee shop, and then the church does this. And
don't wound some people with this one, man. There's a lot of churches with coffee shops.
I'm not against the coffee shop. I'm just saying, like, you know, sometimes these like good ideas people could have end up taken away from like what the essential mission is.
It's true.
Or not the mission, but the strategy.
Right.
You know, the simple strategies. So you got any other examples of how, man, the flywheel can stall because you stop investing in it?
Yeah, I mean, I think churches, businesses are certainly in danger of this. Churches, there's a particular danger because a lot of times these ideas are cloaked in spiritual language. Like, man, here's a chapter and verse. Why aren't we doing this thing like with the same passion or the same energy? And so what you end up with over time, if you're not committed to the flywheel, is you end up with a lot of, let's call them passion projects or things that are really, really good things. They're just not the thing. Like, they're not the main thing. So I think churches especially are in a particular danger of that. And that's why you see the churches with the pamphlets with 70 different things that they're doing and the coffee shop that's kind of become the main thing. And yeah, there's just thousands of examples of that.
Yeah, because there's like a million awesome things that you could do.
Totally.
And maybe you try to do them all. But a lot of times, I mean, churches have a hard enough time getting off the ground. And so you got to be really strategic with like, okay, man, what got more people here? You know, like what got people in the stream? What made our church grow? Like, how did people get into community? And then you have to think, okay, man, is the strategy that we have, is it the right strategy that we want to keep doing?
Yeah.
And if it is, then it's like, man, keep doing it. Keep reinvesting in it.
Yeah.
Like, don't start something new.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I don't know if it was Andy Stanley or who it was, just the principle of like, if you don't know why something is working, then you won't know how to fix it when it's not working. And I think a lot of churches, because the Bible does kind of outline for us the things that we should be doing, but when the focus gets diverted to other things, they're left kind of scratching their head because they didn't really know or have defined on paper, like, this is the thing. Like, this is why this is working. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And, you know, it's funny, like, you'll see sometimes on social media or in certain circles, like, almost this like gotcha moment, like, oh, you know, this church invested this much in a camera, and it's like, oh, gotcha. You shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
For us, it's like, no, man, we're so hyper clear on how the gathering helps to reach more people. Yeah. And it helps to grow the church and people get baptized. And that's the starting point for people getting in groups and using their time, talent, treasure and going on mission. It's like, no, there's no gotcha moment. Like, we got no problem investing in buildings and investing in chairs and investing in cameras. And
yeah, I mean, I could give tons of examples of ways that we've done that. I was thinking as you were talking just about even the very early years of Mercy Hill, before we had the flywheel language, but we had a flywheel, kind of, I guess, intuitively. I remember, one of the very first full-time hires we made was a communications director. It's like, man, most churches, it'd probably be a youth pastor or, because I think it was just you and Andrew that were full-time staff.
Yeah.
The very next hire was a communications director. Well, why is that? It's like, well, we believe that the job of communications and marketing is to push people to the gathering. Mm-hmm. Like, this is the thing that's going to help feed the thing that is actually where we generate momentum, in our church. So, I mean, you talked about cameras. We've made so many hires when it comes to the gathering ministries, and I feel totally fine. I mean, there's not any sort of check in my spirit because we believe so passionately that the more people we have gathered, the more people we can send. And if you can get that clear in your mind, man, diverting those resources in that direction, I mean, it's almost not even a conversation. You know what I mean? It's like, this is the thing. Like, this is how we get more people to the nations. This is how more people get saved, baptized, discipled, grown in generosity, sent to the nations. Yeah,
totally. I mean, I even think about, what we've gone through over the last number of years to build a new home and hub.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We have multiple campuses, but like, our main kind of home and hub where Pastor Andrew preaches from, it was a rented facility. And so, we spent about 5 years where every single year, I don't know what it equated to, but it was significant. A third of every dollar that came into Mercy Hill was put aside to invest in that.
Yeah.
And, for some people in certain circles, it's almost like a gotcha moment. Like, oh, these churches, shouldn't be investing this much in a building or whatever. And it's like, man, we're very clear on what we were hoping the building and the gathering would lead to. And it's like, since we've been in this building, we've had one of our largest baptism weekends we've ever had. We've sent more people on mission trips compared to any other year. I mean, our largest Easter attendance we've ever had, the most amount of people in community groups we've ever had, the most amount of people giving, so it's like, man, we chose to reinvest back in the flywheel because we believed, man, here's the 4 or 5 largest things that are going to make the biggest impact.
Same thing with our campuses, man. You look back, 2016, we launched our first campus. Campuses are expensive. I mean, it's just an is.
Right.
But it's a reinvestment in the gathering. Like, we're not okay with the very front of our flywheel, the very first thing in the flywheel, not having room for that to grow. And so campuses, the new home and hub, all of these things are in an effort. Man, let's reinvest in the thing that kind of feeds everything else so that this thing can continue to grow and we can continue to send.
Yeah, so one of the things in terms of reinvesting, one of the things that you want to do if you have the right flywheel is, momentum happens. If you've designed this thing the right way, momentum happens when every part of the flywheel is healthy. Mm-hmm. I think about this for my personal life. When I think about like, hey, how does my personal life work? I think about, man, I need to love God with all my heart, mind, soul, and strength.
Right.
So it's like, man, that's the heart level. That's being physically healthy. After that, Ephesians 5, I need to love my wife as Christ loved the church. After that, I need to train up my children in the way that they should go. Mm-hmm. Well, when you think of those things, man, if all of a sudden, like, my relationship with my wife is struggling, so kind of the second part of the personal flywheel there, well, it's going to be really hard to train up our children in the way they should go when our relationship is struggling big time.
Right.
Or it's going to be really hard to love my wife as Christ loved the church if my relationship with God is not good.
That's right.
And so when the flywheel is designed the right way and one part is unhealthy, it's going to be clear really, really quick. Like, okay, man, this whole thing is going to slow down because this is not working, because this is unhealthy. Man, talk a little bit about like the way we've designed it and how each of the parts can either help the other parts or hurt the other parts.
Sure. Yeah, so the flywheel, gather, groups, give, go. Gather, we mean attend and serve. So, man, obviously if that's not healthy, let's say we've got a lot of people gathering, but not a lot of people serving, that's probably not going to be a very great experience. There's going to be chaos in the parking lot. There's going to be all kinds of things that aren't right. Well, let's say I think I mentioned this in the last episode. We're in a season right now of crazy growth, 30 to 40% year over year. This new building has enabled us to just see tons of growth numerically in the gathering. Man, if we don't do the hard work to get those people into groups, let's say we fast forward 18 months from now and those 1,000 people are still not connected to a group. Well, that part of the flywheel is really going to struggle, and everything probably downstream from that is going to struggle as well. So it's incumbent upon us to make sure, man, we got to make sure that's healthy too. That next part of the flywheel is healthy. Well, let's say we get those people into groups, but man, we haven't done the hard discipleship work of discipling people when it comes to generosity. It's like, well, man, we're not going to be able to do the next reinvestment in the flywheel because we got all these people here and there's no funds really to do anything, anything in the future to reinvest in anything. So if that's not healthy, man, it kind of affects everything else. Man, if we, you get to the go or the sending part of the flywheel, if we have people who are more concerned about their own comfort, who are not willing to go to their neighborhood, not willing to go to the nations, man, that last part of the flywheel, it's connected to the gathering. So as people move through the flywheel, man, if they get fired up about what God is doing in their life and in their church, they're probably going to want to invite people to be a part of that. Man, if that stalls out, I mean, the best advertising for anything is word of mouth. So if we have people that are just content with this thing being kind of what it is, not living their life on mission, man, it's not going to feed back into the gathering. And so every part has to be healthy for the whole thing to be creating and generating momentum.
Yeah, you want to audit like how it's going. Like going back to the part of like, my life flywheel. I didn't get through it, but man, loving God, heart, mind, soul, strength, loving my wife as Christ loved the church, lead our kids, serve others. That's my vocation. That's my kind of serving back to the world. And then for me at the end, it's this idea of rest and invest. Like, man, I don't want to spend all of my resources, energy, money. There needs to be some left over to kind of reinvest it. Well, if one area of that just gets like totally shut down, you know, like my vocation or something going on with my kids, like it will just shut that whole flywheel down. So as a church, you know, whatever is the most important things that you want to focus on, you got to audit it every now and again. Well, for us, it's not every now and again, it's every week. Yeah. We're constantly auditing, you know, those 4 different areas. We're measuring in every part of that area that we can.
Yeah.
And we try to do it out of humility to say, man, none of us are smart enough sometimes to know what's going on in all these different parts of the church. And sometimes just when you're measuring something, it helps you to be like, okay, I see what's happening here. Yeah. That's surprising. You know, man, we have less people in community groups than we did a year ago. That's surprising. Okay, right. What's going on there? Yeah. You know? And so you just kind of got to audit. And I would encourage people, man, figure out what correlates to what, like in your church. So I would encourage people like, okay, some of you maybe don't measure a ton of stuff, but whatever you do measure, figure out some stuff that you measure, you know, attendance, groups, people giving, people serving, whatever, and dump that into some sort of AI and see what's correlated to what.
Right.
And I've done this a bunch, and it's just like, man, it always is just so clear. Like there's just certain things like, hey, if somebody is in a community group at Mercy Hill, they are so much more likely to give.
Sure.
It's just, man, those things are just correlated. They're statistically correlated.
Right.
Like we know they're spiritually correlated. Like, man, you know, when you have belonging and you have more friends and you have this group, you feel more safe, and God does something to just, when you feel more belonging and safe, to kind of open up your hands.
Yeah.
Same thing with serving. You know, like, man, nothing drives attendance like serving. You know, like, man, the more people serve, they get more connected to the gathering. They're more likely to be there. They're more likely to invite people.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about like, man, how does the flywheel work? Momentum of the flywheel. It's all about, man, we got to keep this thing going. And you're going to have times where there's a part of the flywheel that kind of outpaces another part of the flywheel. Yeah. And it's fine. It's like, that's normal, you know? But when that happens, you got to figure out, okay, if this is an essential component of the flywheel, then we need to do some work here.
That's right.
You know, we need to invest some of this momentum here. Maybe it's money, maybe it's staff. That brings us to the third point. I'll kind of kick it straight over to you. Reinvestment looks like, man, time, energy, communication, money, you know, systems, just thinking about something more. Like, what does it look like to kind of reinvest in all the parts of the flywheel?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think all of those are really valid. I mean, specifically thinking about communication, like we're in a group season right now, trying to push people into groups. It's getting a lot more stage time than it would any other time of the year, because we know, man, this is a part of the flywheel that's lagging behind the gathering. I can look back through the history of Mercy Hill and just think through, man, how many times have we had the decision and made the decision in confidence, man, we're going to reinvest in the gathering. We talked about cameras. We haven't even talked about staff. I mean, making sure that we have the right staff personnel around these different things, these different parts of the flywheel. For us in this last season, that's been a lot of emphasis on the gathering. So hiring a new production director and hiring some more help around that and building out the teams. And man, we invested significantly in, things like audio, video, and lighting at this new campus, because we wanted the experience to be something that was really, really great and enhance the message. And so, man, it just wasn't even a question. You know what I mean? It's like, man, we have got to invest in these things. And then energy, man, I've spent the last, 3 years, and you've been super involved, way more on the front end, but certainly throughout the whole thing, on trying to get us across the finish line in this new home and hub, because we know this is a home for ministry and it's a hub for missions and sending. And so this is, in this last season, this has been the thing that we've decided we're going to reinvest our dollars, our energy, our people, communication. I mean, just came out of a 2-year discipleship initiative, of which, the building was one part of that. There's other things that we've done as well connected to that. But man, it's just been a season of doubling down on This is the flywheel. This is what we believe God has called us to do. Here's how we're going to go about doing it.
Yeah, I was kind of struck by this recently, just kind of being reminded of why it's important to think this way. We were just going through budgets from the last couple of years, and like year after year, if you're not really strategic, the money that the church is spending for the ministry, it could start kind of going in a bunch of different directions. And I just realized, like looking back over the budget, there were some ministries that are like really key ministries for the church that I realized, like, man, their budget is similar to what it was a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. And some of that was out of just like pure necessity. Mm-hmm. It's like, man, we got to be profitable. We got to be solvent, like that's wise to like, not bankrupt the church.
Yes.
And, so it's done out of necessity, but, it made me think, hey, man, we need to financially invest more in this ministry.
Yeah.
Because like if this is an essential component, we need to make sure that we're reinvesting in it.
Yeah.
Like you can't just forever throw off all the profit to just go to a building.
Yeah. Eventually
that has to make its way back around to all the rest of the ministries.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you guys have talked about this on here before, but even the idea of the flywheel focused budget is kind of a way that we make sure we're thinking about these things. So money set aside in the budget every year, knowing, man, we're going to focus, there's going to be areas in the flywheel this year that need a little bit of extra money and attention. And so we want to have the funds when we see something that's going really well or something that needs significant investment to be able to deploy that strategically.
Right.
That's just something that we've done built into our budget.
Yeah, what you're talking about is, a lot of times we'll take whatever the budget is for that year and then take 2 or 3%.
Right.
And kind of set that aside. It's like stuff we don't know that we're going to need to invest in the upcoming year, but there's a little bit of money set aside.
Directly connected to the flywheel.
Totally. Hey, the very last one, and this is what it's all about, is, reinvesting creates compounding impact. And you just have to like remember this. And I think it's easier to see in business than it is like in church, for example. Because in business, the way that you would see it is like, I literally was just talking with some guys the other day. It's not business, but they've been involved with starting a school. And they were kind of sitting in our building and just looking at like, man, this is an awesome building now and all of that. And they're kind of they're at that early stage where it's like, man, if we had an awesome building, we could have more students. And if we have more students, we'd be more profitable. And it's like, well, how do you get more profitable without the building? How do you get the building without being more profitable?
Right.
And that's so hard about the early stages because you're trying to go from 0 to 1. And it's just it can feel like it's impossible. So the goal would be, it's like, man, the mission never gets easier. I mean, it's still supernatural. What you're doing is still difficult. But if you continue to reinvest, there should be, I think one way to think about it is like greater sustainability year after year.
Yeah.
Because churches, if a church doesn't grow beyond 200 in the first 5 years, it's going to be an uphill battle of sustainability.
Yeah.
That's just statistically, it's just sort of a thing.
Yeah.
And so by not starting 1,000 different ministries, but continuing to reinvest, eventually you're able to have some of those things we've talked about. You're able to have support staff.
Yeah.
You're able to have somebody focused on missions. You're able to have somebody focused on groups. Because in the beginning, it was like, man, we're all focused on kind of everything.
Yeah.
And over time, as there's more people and there's more money to go around different, you're able to kind of continue to reinvest. And I don't know, like, do you have any examples of that compounding impact of like what you're able to do now in your role that you weren't able to do 7 or 8 years ago because of more momentum now?
Yeah. I mean, 7 or 8 years ago, my role was like, it was direct leverage. I mean, or basically the only sort of movement that would happen was if I did it myself.
No leverage.
Yeah. Exactly. But now, like as time has gone on and we've just stayed committed to the flywheel and things have continued to grow, like now I'm able to be a little bit more out of the tactics of things and more into the strategic side of things and to be able to use the leverage of other people that we've kind of brought onto our staff team. We're still doing the same thing. We're just doing it at more campuses and by God's grace, doing it with more excellence. And I don't have to be involved in every single thing anymore. Mm-hmm. That's great. And some of the people that work on my team, like they used to be involved in every single thing. And now as we continue just to reinvest in the flywheel and just continue to work the flywheel, man, they're able to do the same. They're able to use leverage in different ways as well. So yeah, I think it's, another thing I was going to say, Bobby, is I think kind of in the space that we're in with breaking barriers, and we've had the privilege of coaching some churches that are kind of earlier in their life cycle, kind of in that startup phase or in the first 5 years. And we've been coached by churches that are 10, 20 years ahead of us,
right.
20,000 people. And what you'll see is, it's very evident with those churches that have committed to this idea of reinvesting in the flywheel and not losing focus. Man, there's so much leverage there. There's so much margin. There's so much ability to be able to do things when opportunity arises. I mean, I'm not going to name any names of different churches, but man, they have caught on to this idea, and there's a lot of power in that and a lot of margin for interesting possibilities because they've committed to this model.
Yeah, I mean, you see churches that are way beyond us. It's like, man, they just don't do student camp anymore. They bought a student camp.
That's right. Yeah.
I remember hearing an example of a church where, all of us may give out bottles of water in our first time guest bags or whatever. Well, they just went ahead and just bought a warehouse and bought 1 million bottles of water.
That's
and
right.
It's like, man, they're getting bottles of water about half what we are.
Yeah.
I mean, they just invested in like the leverage of it all.
That's right.
Staffing, videos. I mean, there's so many examples. The main principle though is like, man, when something's working, do not abandon it and continue to pour gasoline on it.
That's right.
That's kind of what the flywheel is all about. So guys, we hope this was helpful for you. If you have a friend in ministry, I would ask, man, would you like this and share it with them? Hey man, check this out. And I think it could be helpful for them. So we appreciate you guys. Thank you, Pastor Randy.
Absolutely.